Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Snoop Dogg without smoke to my Snoop Dogg with smoke. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Good news, everyone. This is the last international break now until March. Thank God for that, Justin, because we can just now focus on talking about actual championship action without having to watch Luxembourg v Lithuania.
It's the worst kind of international break as well, isn't it? Because it's the end of the qualifiers where quite a lot of teams have qualified. There's very little drama. You know, England have had nothing games against Macedonia and Malta. No one's really cared. I think the players have even cared because
those games were so boring as well.
Yeah, I had to cover the Malta game as well, and it was genuinely an awful couple of hours. But like you said, the football's back. I can sink my teeth into actual knowledge rather than wanting to, I don't know, put myself to sleep. Basically, it's been awful.
Put yourself to sleep, Jesus.
That's a realise how that sounded.
Yeah, I watched the Malta game in the pub and just wasn't paying attention after about 5 minutes. Just chatted to other people instead. It was just one of those international breaks, wasn't it? So thankfully, ladies and gentlemen, it's now just championship until March at the very least. So that's always good with us. Justin, it's become a bit of a tradition now, hasn't it? Me starting each midweek episode with a bit of a question for you. So here's the one for you this week. What connects Cristiano Ronaldo, former Chelsea and Newcastle winger Kennedy, and Woody Harrelson?
That's a good one. Were they all in Cheers at one point?
Ooh, he might be on something, ladies and gentlemen, but he's not.
Yeah.
No, if you had to think, if you probably thought about it, you may have come up with something there. But they're all named after US presidents. Ronaldo's named after Ronald Reagan. That's probably the most obscure one of the bunch. Kennedy's named after John F. Kennedy, and Woody Harrelson's named after Woodrow Wilson. What do you think about that? Are you named after anyone?
Yeah. So my brother actually named me. There was a reserve player for Derby, who was called Justin Phillips. My name is
who
exactly, and my name is Justin Phillip. So yeah, my brother actually coined my name. So technically yes, but technically no as well.
I mean, imagine doing that now, just naming your son after a reserve Derby player who would just go on to nothing. It would be quite incredible. I'm named after Ryan Giggs, which I think 10 years ago would have been something to be happy about, but now not so much. So let's swiftly move on. Welcome to the number one championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, it's been the international break, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got a bit of news for us to catch up on. So we'll talk about all the latest goings on in the championship. We'll also have a look ahead to the weekend and make some predictions, Justin and I, as we continue to tally up how our predictions do for the course of the season. And then we'll finish off with Scott High and Ryan Lowe right at the end of the show. So we'll begin with what I'm now calling Wagner-Watch. David Wagner is staying on as Norwich City manager for now. It's despite winning just 7 points from an available 30, but the new sporting director Ben Napper, who's now been in the job for just over a week, has decided to stick with him. I will admit, I feel bad, Justin, because he's been on the edge of being sacked now for weeks, and we're like a couple of hungry vultures just waiting to pounce as soon as the inevitable seems to happen. But what have you made of the decision to stick with him? Are you surprised?
I think it's both a surprise, but also inevitable. It's kind of it's a weird spectrum to be on. I think Ben Napper would have been hoping to come in and everything be fine and dandy. You know, the birds are singing, the smell of freshly baked pies filling the halls of Carrow Road, animated canaries putting on his blazer. It's not, is it? You're in a dumpster fire where change is extreme. And that's football. I think actually retaining Wagner might be a smart move for him, because I think the thing you need to caveat with the performances need to improve, you need to caveat the Wagner thing with the performances need to improve or you will be sacked. That's quite simple. But I think that the fact that coming in and making an extreme change just isn't the right way to go about it, especially when you're only a couple of weeks in a job, because you need to get accustomed with everybody in the building, not just the manager. There's a whole culture at a football club that you need to address. And Wagner is a good coach. They were good. They were a very good side at the start of the season. They've dropped off because of injuries. Get players back. Who knows what can happen? But that doesn't mean that Wagner isn't lucky to still have his job.
I would disagree. I don't think the drop-off is purely because of injuries. I think it is also down to David Wagner's ability as a coach and his game management in certain games. I also disagree that I think that, for me personally, I think Ben Napper actually had quite an ideal situation coming into Norwich, because I think if I was in his shoes, I'd have looked at it and thought, this is ideal. It means nobody would blame me for changing the manager. It means I can bring in my own man, start afresh, and if I was a new sporting director starting my new job, that sounds like a great position to be in for me. So this just seems to me like we're not getting the big reset that Norwich as a football club badly need still.
But do you need to reset in November? They do need a reset, but can that be done in November? I think is a better way of phrasing it, because I just don't think it is. And again, Ben Napper, is he coming in with a short list of managers? I don't think he is. He was expecting to start the job in March. That was the original date that Stuart Webber was going to leave. So again, he's coming in a bit early because things were getting bad, things were getting toxic, and Webber needed to go. So again, coming in 3 months before you should have actually been starting your role, are you going to be ready to sack a manager and have a replacement lined up? I don't think you are.
He's been sat on the sidelines for months now, knowing that he's going to be getting this job soon. So I imagine he would have had someone in mind. If not, then I'd have a lot of question marks about Ben Napper as a sporting director already. For me, I just think this has the potential to backfire so much and instantly put Ben Napper under pressure. I'm not saying he'd be in danger of getting sacked, but it would go some way to undermining confidence in his decision-making so early in his tenure, because look at it this way, if Norwich get a poor result against QPR this weekend, does he sack Wagner then? If so, people will be asking, why didn't he just do it earlier? And if they have 3 or 4 poor results in a row, then he's really going to have egg on his face, isn't he?
Well, yes, but again, it's that trade-off, isn't it, of making that big decision when you first come in, or waiting for the dust to settle in your role. I think that's a really difficult blend to come in and do. I think just coming in and throwing your weight around, I just don't think it happens in football unless you do have an idea of where the club needs to go. But the team, Stuart Webber, and this was where things really go wrong. Stuart Webber recruited for David Wagner. David Wagner isn't the right coach, and the players weren't of the right standard, I don't think, or of the right. There was a lot of experience, not a lot of pace, not a lot of.
That's why Stuart Webber had to go, didn't he? Because the recruitment in the summer was just all over the shop.
This is why I had to go this time last year, really, because again, Dean Smith held on to his job for too long, hired his mate, etc. So this is where it goes wrong, and this is where Ben Napper's having to sweep up. He's got at least 18 months worth of errors to sweep up, and I don't think sacking the manager is going to alleviate any of those issues, because I think they extend way past David Wagner. I think there's problems with the squad, and I think there's problems with recruitment as well. So I think
I'm not going to disagree with that, Justin. That's what I've been saying for a long time. The whole club needs a big reset, and for me that starts with the manager, because the manager clearly isn't working. He hasn't worked really on a consistent basis for a number of months now. So start with getting in a new man who you believe in first and foremost, and then just go from there. Start over again from that position, and then let it spread outwards is what I'm trying to say. But let's move on in our management chat to South Yorkshire with the latest on Rotherham's hunt for a new gaffer after sacking Matt Taylor. The Rotherham Advertiser says the club don't expect to have a new manager in place this week, but could appoint someone before they play Hull next Tuesday. Neil Warnock has ruled himself out of the job, more on him shortly. Meanwhile, reports say Chris Wilder is not in the running despite being one of the early favourites. John Eustace and Steve Evans are also said to be unlikely. I would have loved to have seen Steve Evans in the Championship again. That would have been absolutely magical, so I'm disappointed that that's not happening. But let's pretend you're in the shoes of the Rotherham hierarchy, Justin. Who would you like to see?
Do you want me to be serious, or do you want me to just lend him with a bit of a jokey answer first? Or
we'll go jokey first, but keep that brief, please.
Jose Mourinho, Diego Simeone. You get them straight on the phone. No?
Okay, let's move on to the series. I thought there was going to be a funnier answer there, to be honest.
I don't know who I could have brought in. That was funny. I don't know.
Steve Evans.
Steve Evans. For me, I think the squad's been recruited for a manager who plays a deep line and direct style of play. They like to sit back, they like to counter quick. Well, that's certainly what the squad feels like at the moment. So I think a manager more suited to that style makes sense. I don't think there's any point in bringing, Bristol City, for example, bringing Liam Manning. There's no point in bringing that type of coach, is there? Because it's just going to go terribly wrong, terribly quickly, unless you want to commit to the long term. And if you're doing that, you may as well have kept Matt Taylor. But if you're looking at that sort of manager who likes to play with a deep line, sit back and counter quick, Gary Rowett is the archetypal figurehead you want for that role or that style.
Do you think he's realistic, though?
No. That's what I was going to get into. I think I think that's an ambitious shout. I mean, he cited that he wants to be closer to his family in Staffordshire, East Midlands. Yorkshire's a lot closer than London to that. So that's a potential if he wants to get back into management quite quickly. I don't think he does, because I think he had a couple of months off in between his Millwall and Stoke roles. So there's that. But again, with that style of play in mind, you're probably looking at someone like Liam Richardson, who's been the favourite for a while. I think he deserves another chance, but that being said, do I think he's an upgrade on Matt Taylor? I don't think he is. So I really do think Rotherham should be looking for a manager who understands the club, who's been in that scenario before, where you're in the shadow of the bigger clubs like Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. Your budget isn't high, maybe you have experience playing for them, but all that's maybe too close to Paul Warne as well.
I have been surprised to see the likes of Chris Wilder and Gary Rowett linked with the job, because I just simply don't see them being realistic at all. I mean, why would they take the Rotherham job? And I mean, it's with no disrespect, but let's be honest, it's quite an unattractive job, isn't it? The aim is simply to stay up, and you're being asked to do it with minimal funds, and then even if you do keep them up, then what? You're just constantly in this cycle of fighting to stay up again, season after season. So that's why I think Rotherham would be wasting their time looking at someone like Chris Wilder, Gary Rowett, even Nathan Jones. So the best thing I think they could do is give a young coach a chance who's not had a manager's job before, take that gamble on someone like that, or look down the lower leagues like they did before with Matt Taylor. If there is anyone out there in either of those two camps, I don't know who they are, because no one particularly stands out for me. I suppose Liam Richardson isn't a bad shout. He was doing all right at Wigan, wasn't he?
He was. There was that long run, and they've got a very poor away record as well. So there's that. I weirdly think Gareth Ainsworth might suit this side more than he suited QPR.
Yeah. That's not a terrible shout. I do think Gareth Ainsworth is out of his depth at Championship level personally, but I don't think he'd be the worst appointment.
Out of his depth? Yes and no. I think it really does depend on the squad and standard of player he's got available to him. I think it's a shame in that case that he's just left QPR after pretty much disaster. I think if this was still at Wickham, he'd be perfect. But I think that spell with QPR has obviously just muddied the mind a little bit in terms of where he'd point his finger straight away in terms of looking for a new manager for this team. But I do think he's the perfect person to do it, because again, you've got that. He ticks a lot of boxes. That play, managing a smaller club in the shadow of bigger clubs like Wickham, small budget, up against it. I do think the circumstances are perfect for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would see Rotherham's chances of staying up upgraded if Gareth Ainsworth did come in, but in the long term, it might work a bit better, but I don't know. I'm still not convinced by Gareth Ainsworth. I wouldn't mind seeing him back in the Championship, because as far as quotes go, he gave us plenty of content in that regard, didn't he? Now Neil Warnock has given us an insight into his plans for his next job. Speaking to Sky Sports, he said, shall I do it in his voice or not, Justin?
Go on then. Yeah. Start it in his voice.
Speaking to Sky Sports, he said, I don't work until February. It's usually February I start work. Sharon knows if I do get 1 or 2 or 3 months, she'll let me go for 2 or 3 months. It would be nice to have a club sort of mid-table. I can have a good go at getting in the playoffs rather than somebody bottom of the league or second from the bottom. I've just got to keep them up. Where do you think he'll end up, Justin?
Firstly, that was a character from Coronation Street. That wasn't Neil Warnock.
It was, wasn't it?
Where do I think he'll end up? That's the question. What an open-ended question. I've got no idea. I'd have expected a Rotherham or QPR to go for him. Yeah, they're the perfect clubs.
It's too early, Justin.
That's exactly. It's too early. But I don't think if they have, I think maybe his time in the Championships is gone. Sadly, I say it with gritted teeth. I say it with sadness. Is he likely to get a Championship level job again? I'm not sure. I think February is his peak time, isn't it? He's the pumpkin spice latte of football. He's seasonal for basic bitches, but except the basic bitches in this metaphor are desperate owners wanting to achieve their objectives.
Yeah, the most basic of bitches, in my opinion. For me, I think QPR has got his name written all over it. I can just see it now. If it doesn't work out for Marty Cifuentes, Warnock in when they're still in the relegation zone come March time. I don't think Sheffield Wednesday is out of the question either. Danny Rule is doing what he can do there, but if they're still struggling, it won't surprise me to see Chansiri blow his top and decide, right, let's have one last roll of the dice and see if we can stay up. It is interesting what he said about fancying a job at a team looking to get into the playoffs, though. Do you think he'd be a good appointment for a playoff chasing side?
Sadly, I don't think he would. It's quite difficult saying that because I think he would be a good appointment for most sides in the Championship. But I just think the squads that expect to be chasing promotion, shall we say, or current clubs in the top half. Only one manager is over 50, Tony Mowbray at Sunderland, which is quite an interesting stat. It's just one manager over 50. So again,
how old's Mark Robbins?
Clubs in the current top half.
Oh, but
Mark Robbins is
last season.
It's unlikely. I think Mark Robbins is 52, or a bit older. But the point there is clubs are choosing managers either at the peak of their careers, like Daniel Farker, who's 47, or managers beginning their career as manager, like Kieran McKenna, Carrick, Maresca, etc. So it's very rare you see a manager who is literally retired this time last year get a job for a side chasing promotion. I'm sure if there was a club who lost their manager, you look at Luton this time last year, for example, small budget. I'm not saying Luton would have appointed Neil Warnock, but small budget. They're on the cusp of chasing promotion. Why not get a man in till the end of the season to try and see you over the line? Neil Warnock would be perfect, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Steve Bruce was maybe the last one I could think of with West Brom, and unfortunately didn't end well.
I think that's just ageism on your behalf, Justin. For me, I kind of agree in the other respect that I just don't think he'd be a good appointment for a playoff chasing side. I'd be more confident about him keeping a team up if they're 5 points from safety than I would be in him getting a team in the playoffs when they're 5 points off the top six. I mean, you look at his recent track record, he had in charge of a so-called mid-table side, was Middlesbrough, wasn't it? And they never really looked like getting into the playoffs when he was there. I also think his style is much more suited to survival than a playoff race. But I'd be interested to see it happen if it did happen, but it's not for me personally. Speaking of Middlesbrough, defender Darragh Lenihan is set to miss the rest of the season with an Achilles injury. He hasn't played for the last 2 months, but has now confirmed on an Instagram post that he's had surgery on the problem. He's the second Middlesbrough defender who's out for the season already after Tommy Smith was ruled out. It leaves them very thin on the ground at the back, doesn't it, Justin?
Yeah, I'm not worried about depth. I'm more worried about the lack of leadership at the back. Tommy Smith has obviously stepped up with his experience, become a bit of an unsung hero for Borough. And Darragh Lenihan is, of course, your archetypal central defender leader type. So yeah, I think that's where they're gonna struggle. Matt Clark is coming back from injury, but he hasn't played since last October. Paddy McNair, Dale Fry, Rev Vandenberg stepped up. So I think there's depth. I think it just lacks leadership, which is the big issue. And when you've got a team who like to play fairly open like Middlesbrough, having that leader type who can organise those in front of you does help. So that's where they're going to miss Darragh Lenihan the most. Obviously, he's a quality defender, but not having that organiser in there is going to be an interesting one to see how they handle that.
I think you're underestimating how thin on the ground it leaves them in terms of depth, because they've got Del Fry and Paddy McNair, who have both been excellent at centre-back, is worth saying. But McNair is out of contract in the summer, and if an offer comes in, they may very well have to sell. And then in terms of centre-back options, there isn't many else. You've got Matt Clark, who's coming back from injury, but he's not played in over a year. So it's a lot asking him to suddenly become a regular if McNair were to go. Fry or McNair got injured. You've got Ralph van den Berg, who's been playing at right back. He's traditionally a centre half, but I don't see any other right backs unless Isaiah Jones drops back. So they've not had much luck with injuries, and they're essentially down to bare bones at the back all of a sudden, which isn't ideal for Middlesbrough. It's a side which it's got varying degrees of quality and depth, hasn't it, in certain areas of the squad, and suddenly at the back it's looking very thin indeed. And finally, for now, did you see the mascots for the Sierra Leone v Egypt World Cup qualifier were wearing Huddersfield shirts? It was the Huddersfield away shirt from the 2018-19 season. Mo Salah, of all people, posted a picture of the players singing the national anthems with the mascots stood in front of them, donned in red and black. I mean, I've got so many questions, Justin, mainly centering around how, why, what the fuck.
It's a random one, isn't it? I mean, of all shirts as well, why the 2018-19 Huddersfield Town away shirt? Surely there's a Premier League shirt that they would have preferred. By the way, to be fair, Huddersfield were Premier League at that point, so maybe they just picked up an interest in Huddersfield during their disastrous stay in the top flight.
I have got a theory. Because didn't Huddersfield around that time have a lad called Ramadan Sobhi? Who's Egyptian?
Yeah.
So unless for some reason he's just got loads of child-sized Huddersfield away shirts from 2018-19, that's the only thing I could possibly come up with here, Justin, but it's still extremely strange.
Well, it just had an influx of Huddersfield Town supporters because of Ramadan Sobhi during that season. So now they've got this fan club in Egypt because of Ramadan Sobhi. He did nothing for the football club on the pitch during his time there, but at least he's generated a few more supporters.
Yeah. I wonder what they think about Darren Moore. Probably very displeased. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll have a look ahead to the weekend. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. It's now time for Justin and I to have a look ahead to the weekend and make some predictions. So in each preview episode of the Second Tier, Justin and I will each pick a banker, a team we think is guaranteed to win this coming weekend, as well as an outsider, so someone we think is going to win, but is bigger odds with the bookies than their opponents. We're tracking how we do as the season goes on. It's 1 point for a correct banker, 2 points for an outsider. Whoever loses has to do a forfeit. That'll be a CrossFit workout for myself, while Justin will be going on a coach trip from Sunderland to Plymouth and back. And I tell you what, National Express, better get ready. Justin Peach is joining you soon from the way things are going currently. The scores are 18-13 to myself. Quite a big gap which has developed all of a sudden. It comes after both Justin and I got our bankers correct a couple of weeks ago, but I got my outsider correct of Millwall to win away at Sheffield Wednesday last time out. Mind the gap, Justin.
Sorry saying that, but it's a 5-point gap. That's literally one good weekend. It's a little bit more than one good weekend. It can all change with this weekend. It can put the pressure right back on you. And I will say again, I've brought it up before, and it does irk me a lot, Ryan. I feel like the listeners need to know about this gamesmanship, this obvious display of gamesmanship. 8:15 on Monday morning, you sent yours in. Absolutely horrendous.
Well, I will point out the last time we did our predictions, I put mine in on Tuesday. You've just shown absolutely no ambition from yourself to put in your predictions any earlier. And it sounds like, if we're being completely honest, that you just seem to forget until I do it.
Probably more likely.
Go on, Justin, what's your banker for the weekend?
I've not gone with Leicester to play Watford. I've gone with Leeds to beat Rotherham away. That's the one I've gone with. It seems an obvious one, obviously, because of the obvious places in the league. It would be very Leeds to lose or draw this one, but it would also be very Rotherham and the Championship match to provide an upset. But for me, Matt Taylor is gone. They're coming off the back of a 5-0 defeat to Watford before the international break, and Leeds have the top two in their sight with recent wobbles for Leicester. This is a game they have to win. There's no debate about it. I know it's a very obvious statement to make, but if you want top two, you cannot afford to become inconsistent and you cannot afford to become complacent. The start of their charge to the top has to begin this week. It has to. If they don't get a result here, I would be very confident in saying they're not going to reach the top two. I think Ipswich and Leicester could run away with it. So they have to beat Rotherham. I wouldn't say they have to do it convincingly, but they have to do it more convincingly than the Plymouth display just before the international break. Because that game did show that Leeds can be vulnerable, but also the quality difference in the two sides between Leeds and Rotherham is so stark and so big. You cannot be complacent. They can be. We've seen it already this season. So this has to be the start. Just before Christmas, this has to be the start of the run.
Yeah, I can't disagree with this one, Justin. There's two obvious bankers this weekend, and I simply preferred mine over this one, which I will get onto very shortly. The only things that made me a bit hesitant about possibly picking Leeds was, A, the fact that they do have a tendency to have a poor performance in one in every 5 games from what we've seen so far this season. Not a poor performance necessarily, but not a performance that's as good as the other ones is probably a better way of saying it. And also, I'm always a bit hesitant anyway to back a team to lose after they've just sacked their manager, because perhaps it could generate some sort of a reaction.
It could do. That is the variable to bring in, and it could make them very resilient, and it's us against them sort of thing. And I'm going back to Leeds, Salford in the League Cup, where Salford, I think they won on penalties, didn't they? And then obviously Sheffield Wednesday. Those two games where those two teams were very, very stubborn, and Leeds found it very frustrating to break them down and get through. And this is that type of game where the quality difference is so stark and so different. And again, you are right. There is that factor that Leeds have the ability to drop off 1 in 3, 1 in 4, and they can be punished. And Rotherham have shown it. They can punish teams. They did it with Southampton. So that there is that capability to do so. So it does concern me a little bit, but like I said, I'm confident that Leeds have to get a result, or will get a result, because they have to. They simply have to. They cannot afford to slip up now.
Yeah, they certainly have to. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. Also, it's Salford, not Salford.
Salford.
Jesus Christ.
Salford.
I hate it when people say Salford. It's one of my big bugbears.
You of all people cannot correct me on speech, but carry on as you were.
But hang on, what's that based on?
I'm not going to accuse you of anything, but I get
because you haven't got anything to confuse me.
No, I have.
Accuse me about.
I certainly have. No, I don't have any examples to hand.
Go on. Exactly, because there isn't anything.
There is.
Go on.
No, I don't. What do you expect me to do?
You say there is, but there isn't any examples. Okay. Thank you for proving my point. My banker for the weekend is Leicester to win at home to Watford. Pull yourself together, man. Of course, back-to-back losses for Enzo Maresca's ferocious Foxes, but I'll be stunned if this is just anything more than just a blip. They lost to a Leeds side who were excellent on the day, and then to a moment of magic by Sam Greenwood. But Middlesbrough are a very good side as well, lest we forget. So Leicester have got too much quality in abundance for this to be a long-term problem for me. They've got certainly too much quality for Watford. Valerie Ishmael's boys are unbeaten in 6. They have been playing better. Ishmael has changed how they've been approaching games. They haven't been playing incredibly by any means, though, and the 6 games they're unbeaten in were by no means the toughest set of fixtures. So Leicester are simply a much better side than Watford. They provide a much sterner test than the games that they have played recently, and I fancy the Foxes to get back on track in style here.
You made a statement not too long ago in this episode. I say not too long ago, literally about a minute and a half ago, about there being 2 obvious bankers this week, and Leicester and Watford was one of them. I just cannot fathom how that is an obvious banker for me, considering Watford being unbeaten in the last 6 and Leicester going into this game having been defeated in their last 2 games. It's going to be an awkward. I'm not saying Leicester will lose, but I don't think an obvious win for Leicester is on the cards here.
Jesus Christ, talk about recency bias getting in the way of all sense and logic. Let's be honest, Leicester are just a much better team than Watford.
Recency bias, it's called form. It's called form, which is an important thing in football. It's confidence.
2 games against 2 very good teams.
Against 2 very good teams, and Watford, I think, potentially could be on the up. They're unbeaten in the last 6, as you pointed out. And interesting as well, they're starting to play to the strengths of the players at this disposal. Cross is going into Rajovic, isn't he? It's a clear example of that, and they did very well against Rotherham, albeit it was Rotherham. But Rotherham gave Leicester a game earlier on in the season, so it's that factor that anyone can beat anyone in the Championship, and a team being 6 unbeaten are going to make it much more awkward than I think you give it credit for.
Go on then, big man. Make it your outsider for the weekend.
No, because I've not prepared any notes on it.
But I get what you're saying about them being unbeaten. They have been playing better. But you've got to keep in mind, the unbeaten run, they've won 3 out of 6. And the teams they played in that time include Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield and Rotherham. So not the trickiest of games by any means. And the other teams they faced, I think I'm right in saying only Cardiff are in the top half.
What's your point?
It's not the trickiest of games. Leicester's a bit different to that, Justin. So you can get on your high horse and say, this isn't a banker, but I think come the end of the weekend, you may be saying differently. My outsider for the weekend is Blackburn to win away at Stoke. This is one of those weekends where there weren't many obvious outsiders, but this is the most likely one for me. Blackburn are quite an unpredictable side. They're following a similar trend to the start of last season where they're just not drawing games. They've got just 1 draw to their name, 7 wins and 8 losses. They're definitely better going forwards than in defence, which perhaps lends to their unpredictability. But they have been productive away from home, though. Only Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton have won more points on their travels than Blackburn. They're on 3 away wins in a row as well, so I won't be surprised to see them get another W on the board. And if Sammy Szmodics continues his unbelievable form, then that will certainly be a big plus. It's worth saying Stoke's form has been good. They've got 3 very impressive wins in a row against Sunderland, Leeds and Middlesbrough, but they followed that up with goalless draws against Cardiff and Coventry. They haven't conceded a goal in their last 4 games, so something's got to give against a productive Blackburn side in attack. But ultimately, I'd be surprised if Stoke managed to sustain their decent form, mainly because I don't rate them that highly as a side. And with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a Blackburn win here.
Talk about recency bias. I'm going into this. I'm going into this again, thinking it's a little bit uncomfortable for an outsider. And you are right; there weren't too many, so maybe this is a good archetypal one of it fits the criteria of it being an outsider. But I just think Stoke's home form and Blackburn's lack of personnel. I think Stoke are in a much healthier squad state than Blackburn. Obviously, Dom High being out of the game is a really tricky one, because you saw against that Preston in that Preston defeat, that the game management side of things from a defensive point of view lacked towards the end of the game, and I think it's probably why Preston nicked the win. But I do think Stoke are in a much healthier state than Blackburn on the pitch, or squad wise or injury wise. I think that might see them over the line in this one. The away form for Blackburn is incredible. He's very, very good, but sometimes it does help to have players available.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to deny Blackburn have got their injury problems, but I look at these two side by side and I think they're quite evenly matched teams in terms of just where they are this season. So that's why I don't think a Blackburn away win is completely out of the question, and I'd actually fancy them based on their away form this season more than I would Stoke. Hence why I've got it as my outsider. What's yours, Justin?
I'm backing on Millwall's home form, not having an immediate improvement under Joe Wood, so I'm going with Coventry to beat Millwall at the Den. There's always a risk that, of course, Edwards has had 2 weeks to work with his players, so there's some nervousness there from me. But I just think I'm Coventry are one of the league's most prolific creators. Millwall, interestingly, also concede a lot of shots at home. So based on the math and the probability of chances, I get my hat on there. Coventry have to at least show up at least once in front of goal. I think Haji Wright's one of the biggest underperformers when it comes to putting big chances away. So that, again, it just fits the criteria for an outsider, because Coventry just don't put their chances away, and Millwall have a habit of being able to punish you. And then they've got the confidence of having that 4-0 away win against Sheffield Wednesday. Yes, it's against Sheffield Wednesday, but it's a 4-0 away win. 4-0 away win against any team is an outstanding result. So they're going to take that into a new start under Joe Edwards. So it's going to be an awkward one for Coventry. But I just think, again, the amount of chances they create, and again, that need to kick-start their season, similar to Leeds, getting form going before Christmas, I think is the best time to do it, because you can, as we saw last season, can go from a bottom 3 dweller to a top 6 contender by the turn of the year.
But Justin, have you considered their form? Coventry have only got 2 points from 6 games, whereas Millwall have just beaten Sheffield Wednesday 4-0. Have you not considered the form?
No, I haven't in this one, and it's because it's an outsider, Ryan. You can't consider form. You've got to go with your beliefs. You've got to go with your gut on these ones. You can't just be boring and mathematic and clinical with everything like you are. You've got to have emotion. You've got to have feeling.
You accused me of it earlier in the episode.
And I'm being a hypocrite, and I'm going to embrace that. I'm going with my gut here. I'm going with emotion.
Not for the first time.
I've got nothing else to say on it other than, football's about emotion. Football's about love. It's all about that. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I think this is just part of your ongoing agenda against Joe Edwards and how you aren't convinced about it as an appointment. Coventry is such a frustrating side because I keep looking at them and thinking surely things will get on track again soon. They're creating so many chances and actually playing quite well in games, but the fact that they've just got 2 points from 6 games is just, mind-blowing, really. So I like to think Coventry will get going soon. Maybe that will be against Millwall this weekend. Having said that, Millwall looked a much better side in their first game against Wednesday, obviously winning 4-0, shows that. So whether that comes against them, because of course the Den's a tricky place to go in traditional sense, I just don't know. We just need Haji Wright, Ellis Sims, Matt Godden, just one of them to find their shooting boots all of a sudden. Maybe check down the back of the sofa or something like that, because they can't be that far away, surely. Justin, it's now time for this.
Scott High or Ryan Lowe?
Your best is fucking shit, mate.
Yes, it's time for Scott High or Ryan Low. This is the game where we have to rank 4 things from highest to lowest. It's as simple as that. There's 3 questions. And ladies and gentlemen, we're opening up the floor to you once again. If you fancy providing a Scott High or Ryan Low question for us, then please let us know and we'll give you a shout out on the podcast. If you send them in to secondtierpod@gmail.com, then we will receive them, and if you put the subject line as Scott High or Ryan Low, then either Justin and I may very well read out your Scott High or Ryan Low suggestion in the coming weeks. But for now, it's just questions from me, Peachy Boys. So this week I'll be providing the questions for Justin. And your first one, Justin, is this. Rank these 4 championship clubs on who is the most famous according to a poll by YouGov. It says their fame is defined by the percentage of people in the UK who have heard of them. So basically, it sounds like they've gone out on the street and asked people, have you heard of this club? And that's basically what they've done. The clubs are Leicester City, Norwich City, Sheffield Wednesday, and Watford.
Okay.
Bit of a strange one to start things off, but
that is a strange one.
I thought I'd throw it out there.
It's a proper. They've gone out in the international break and asked questions because they've got nothing else to do.
I'm not sure it says recent as the last international break.
It'll be an international break of previous years then.
Possibly.
I'm going to go with Watford last, mainly because it's just outside of London. So I think people forget Watford exists sometimes, which is unfair, I'll point out. And I think I'll go with Sheffield Wednesday third, mainly because the more common individual might just go, why are they named after a day of the week? That's absurd. It is a bit weird, but that's where we are. And then I'll go with Leicester City top, and then who's second?
Norwich,
yeah, because they've been in the Premier League recently.
So Watford.
Yeah, but just outside of London tax.
Okay. You are wrong because you've underestimated how famous, or overestimated rather, how famous Norwich City are.
What?
So Leicester City are top. 89% of people have heard of Leicester City, apparently. Sheffield Wednesday is second. 85% of people have heard of Sheffield Wednesday. I think it's the Wednesday bit, isn't it?
That's true. Damn it.
Yeah, they just stand out. Watford, third, 83%. And then Norwich City were 81% of people have heard of them, apparently.
That's a surprise. I'm a bit disappointed in the in the people of the streets of where this government poll was taking place.
Yes, well, you can take that up with them. So you're wrong on the first one, Justin. The next one is this. Rank these 4 current championship players on who has the most England caps to their name. They are Mark Albrighton, Patrick Bamford, Jake Livermore, Cal Walker-Peters.
Jake Livermore top.
Okay,
because he got a fair few caps. Patrick Bamford's got one cap, I think. I'm going to put him bottom, though. Kyle Walker-Peters is a tricky one. Mark Albrighton... Roy Hodgson definitely picked Mark Albrighton at some point, but maybe just a sub appearance. You know what? I'm going to go Patrick Bamford last, then Mark Albrighton, then whoever the other person was, Kyle Walker-Peters, and then Jake Livermore.
Oh, you've got it. You mixed up Bamford and Albrighton, unfortunately.
Really?
So Jake Livermore's got 7, which astounded me. 7.
Wow.
7 England caps. When? Kyle Walker-Peters was second with 2. Patrick Bamford has 1 England cap. Mark Albrighton has none.
Definitely Roy Hodgson's picked him for a squad. It's just it is typical of Roy Hodgson.
Sure he has.
I don't doubt he's not been capped, but
you'd have thought with the whole Leicester winning the Premier League thing that he may have got called up at some point. He's never been called up to the England squad.
Roy Hodgson, what are you doing? He's your kind of player, Roy.
Would you say he's the best player to never get called up to England?
Yeah, he's certainly better than Steve Bruce ever was. Yeah,
Mark Noble, or something along those lines. Anyway, it's nearly that time of the year, Justin. But can you rank for me the top 4 most streamed Christmas songs of all time, according to the official charts company? Emphasis on streamed, not bought. Streamed. So. The songs I'm looking for are this: All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey, Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues, and the one who got killed by the speedboat, Merry Christmas Everyone by Shakin' Stevens, and Last Christmas by Wham.
Oh, I hate Christmas songs with a passion because they never change. I'm going to go with the Pogues top, then Mariah Carey with the other shit Christmas song. Then I'm going to go with Wham. That's actually quite a good one, actually. I do enjoy a bit of Wham.
Banger.
Then I'm going to go with Shaking Stevens.
No, that one was all over the shop. I am surprised you did not put Mariah Carey top. That was just obvious.
I just think people are sick of it because it's on all the time.
Nope, absolutely not, Justin. When it gets to December the 1st, people are already, thawing out that one, and Mariah Carey's there screaming in everyone's ears. All I Want for Christmas for You is top. Last Christmas was second. Fairy Tale of New York third. Merry Christmas Everyone was fourth. So actually, you just massively overestimated how popular Fairy Tale of New York was.
I do. It's the one you always sing.
What's your favourite Christmas song, Justin?
The one with the trumpets and the cavalry. It's not actually a Christmas song. Yeah. That one. Yeah. It's a good little jam. Yeah, but it's not actually a Christmas song. Incredible, right?
No, it's not. I like Step Into Christmas, Elton John. It's just a vibe.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy, which I don't think a lot of Christmas songs have. So that's fair.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Sunday to review the return of Championship football from this dark and gloomy international break. If you haven't yet, make sure you go back to listen to the Paul Robinson episode on Sunday, the former West Brom, Birmingham, Bolton, Watford defender. It was a great listen. He was a really good chat and gave us plenty of insight into what it was like with Gary Rowett's sacking from Millwall not too long ago, as well as, coaching Jude Bellingham and other bits and pieces from his playing career. So plenty for you to get your teeth into there. It's a really cracking lesson. Otherwise, we'll see you on Sunday. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.